Hey, beautiful people, as always, heartfelt pleasure. I hope this finds you well. So, this week, wanted to really share video podcast episode. Those of you who are listening to the podcast, you can watch the video format of this via our YouTube channel. I really want to share this episode, really exploring and really kind of merging from last week's and looking at the invitation we had from Brigid to ask her a question, and then we took a really beautiful card from this Celtic Spirit Oracle deck. We explored, or began to explore, the card from the Celtic Spirit Oracle deck. Really beautiful set of cards gifted to me from a very, very, very dear friend of mine. And the card that came up was the Herbalist. Absolutely love this image. There she is with all her tools on her belt there. You can see all the tools there on her belt. And very otherworldly there with her wings. Very fey-like, very land white. Reminds me very much, you can see above me there, behind me, of Brenna, a land white and a guide that I've been blessed to work with for the last 2 to 3 years. She showed herself 2 or 3 years back, but spoke to me about my childhood, so it gave me the impression she was there ever since I was a wee boy, playing within the woods and building dens and having imaginary friends. So much of what we have all experienced that really have a deep love of the natural world and the land itself. So yes, we were exploring this invitation that we had from Brigid, and also the whisperings of the message, so think about the question that you had for Brigid and then how this began to answer the question. One of the things that has stirred up for me, there's a multitude of layers to her answer, with this card showing up for me. But one of the things that I felt collectively for all of you and for myself, because it's an ongoing journey, is, and I've made a note of this, is how can I so Spirit answering a question with a question, right? So how can you, how can we, how can I step into my light? Okay, because the Herbalist, she, without a shadow of a doubt, is a leader. She's a leader. She's a healer. Okay, she's a medicine person. Okay, so her answer is, okay, here I am. Looking at your question that you asked Brigid, the answer that is following, showing up as the Herbalist, and her question to you is, how can I step into my light? How can I be brave, and how can I step into this courageously? Right, because here we are, all this feels really relevant for lots of reasons that we share, but here we are. Yesterday I was really honoured and privileged to hold alongside my dear dad and Joe and facilitate our Imbolc rites. Okay, our Imbolc rites, and there we are, also just moving through this full moon gateway. Okay, so we've got our Imbolc rituals and rites that we were holding yesterday, and there we are, also being overlapped by this full moon, and it just gave me this feeling that when I kind of was pondering last week's experience, and really looking at that, that what was coming to mind was, how can we step into the light? How can we step into the light? How can I be brave, and how can I step into this courageously? So as I say, we're travelling through that full moon gateway, and you think, the other question that come to mind in this, that really started to percolate was, what have you been dreaming, and who have you been dreaming with? So what have you been dreaming, and who have you been dreaming with? As I say, I think Imbolc is a threshold. Just as I sensed and saw that day of Brigid standing in that doorway, her resting in the threshold, carrying a basket of logs, wearing this heavy woolen cloak soaked with rain. There's so much powerful imagery within that vision. There she is standing there, soaked through to the skin, wearing this heavy woolen cloak, carrying these logs within her basket. We also are returning from our descent and bringing back the gifts from the darkness. We are carrying the seeds we have been dreaming over the winter. So what have you been dreaming, and who have you been dreaming with? And quite often, there's this invitation to alchemize those aspects of ourselves and those things that no longer serve us over the winter. Forged from the challenges that we have overcome, and also this deep feeling of this long lost, forgotten power that we've reclaimed. I think that has really come up to the surface this winter, and something that really is percolating as we move through this Imbolc tide and season, from the dreaming to the awakening, as Brigid gently whispered as she stood there at that threshold, is that I've really come to really understand that as much as these seasonal celebrations have been, kind of forged into one day, that they are not just one day, they are beyond that. Of course, there is fixed points along the wheel that mark a moment in time, such as summer solstice, such as winter solstice, such as autumn equinox and spring equinox. But those around it feel as if they're more of a season and a tide, and it's not just a clunk on the turn of the wheel. There is this merging and this overlapping and this enveloping, and it's like, if we kind of look at what Brigid was saying, is that from the dreaming to the awakening, from the dreaming of winter to the awakening of spring, the dreaming started to take hold and gently drop into an autumn equinox. And then there was this feeling of kind of like, rupturing and dissolving as we got into winter's nights. We just descended deeper into those shorter days. Samhain, winter's nights, All Hallowed Eve, we just descended very deeply into those shorter days, into those longer nights. And there was kind of this rupturing, this falling away, which is exactly what nature was doing. So I think there is this other layer that is beginning to reveal itself within these seasonal celebrations. Underneath that is a more older, a more ancient rhythm, you know, from the dreaming to the awakening. You know, I wonder what's beyond the awakening, the ripening, the blossoming. You know, there's just these stirrings that there is this other layer that is being presented, you know, which kind of, you know, gives me this feeling of, you know, what we have long lost, forgotten, and we are reclaiming. As spirits say, we're in a cycle of return. We're being woven back into the center. It is a time beyond learning. It is a time of remembrance. You know, long lost, forgotten power that we are reclaiming. We're reclaiming our natural rhythms. We're reclaiming our waxing and waning that's beyond this distorted man-made calendar. And we're kind of, you know, we're overlapping both, which is, you know, this transition into something that is more wholesome. You know, these seeds that we have been dreaming, you know, quite often they're forged from the deep fires of our dreaming, our longing, and they potentially can provide such fertile soil for this next cycle of growth, the awakening into the ripening, blossoming. You know, what has been stirring in you these long nights? What dreams have you been tending? What have you been dreaming, and who have you been dreaming with? You know, when we dream alone, we dream. Yet when we dream together, we shape reality. Okay? When we dream together, we shape reality. You know, there are people in this world, within our worlds, okay, who really support us in our dreams. They dream with us, so they strengthen that dream. And that's absolutely what I've experienced last night and this morning. There I was coming back from Imbolc, right, the privilege to facilitate that alongside my dear dad and Joe. And I was coming back, it was early evening, and I was just, you know, kind of like really immersed in that wisdom and all the channel messages that have been shared, the drumming, the stories, the songs. I was really deeply immersed in that. And then I kind of sat there, and there was this beautiful message, an email and video message from a really, really dear friend of mine, who kind of shared something that really took hold in me, that is absolutely opened up. You know, that was the other thing, is that on the altar yesterday I'd created this bind rune from these old iron nails, and this bind rune of opening and beginning, you know, so Begana and the opening rune, and fused them together, which I have, which has been gifted from this particular friend actually. So I'd crafted this rune, which is opening and beginning, and last night to receive this beautiful email and then this video, very short video message that was packing a real punch, there was this sense of this opening and this expansion, and what was shared just absolutely took hold. Something I've been mulling over, and I think they've known and sensed, and they'd shared it with me before, but within this moment it absolutely took hold, and it has a life of its own, and I can see it just unraveling. And the thing is that's where you have people in your world that are dreaming with you. They dream with us, so they strengthen that dream, and we do the same for them. So there is this sharing, and it's like Spirit have often said, is that when we sit together around our fires, literally or virtually, we hold pieces for each other. Our stories are pieces for each other. We hold the medicine stories and the medicine pieces for each other, and when we kind of share and we dream together, we strengthen each other's dreams, and we dream together, and we strengthen those dreams. And that's exactly what took hold. And and there was me writing down, in the last 4 or 5 days, kind of the inroad for this episode, this video, and there at the top of the page was this big question. And knowing, it coming from Brigid, what have you been dreaming, and who have you been dreaming with? Profound. None of these things are by chance, they are by design. And then this morning, another message coming from another dear friend, who was just absolutely, wishing us the most beautiful day, and how, it's feeling, very spring-like. It was just such a beautiful message. And again, talking about dreams and visions, and shared dreams and shared visions, none of these things are by chance, so I think it's a really important point is, what have we been dreaming, and who have we been dreaming with? Because there are also the opposite side of that beautiful experience. There are those that knowingly or unknowingly work against their dreams. They put doubt in there, or there's an energy around it, or they feel as if you're growing and you're expanding, and they're feeling as if they're pulling you back into their boat. These are things that we just need to absolutely be aware of. I think I'm really blessed that I only but sit with those that we tend to each other and nurtures each other's dreams, and with heart, but honestly and realistically too. We nurture each other into those incredible possibilities with a huge amount of heartfelt accountability too, and that's a beautiful place to be. And that's the thing, is that it's kind of like being aware. I think it's a really powerful question that Brigid placed upon us, and I think when I look at this, what comes to mind is for me, it answered a lot. It really did answer a lot. One of the things I've been dreaming over the winter was to shift and transition the bothy from a food only garden, there are some herbs, but food only garden, into a herb garden. And then I was gifted this incredible gift, these cards alongside the herbery. It was like, my God, and that was at York. It's like, my word, there's an answer, there's an answer, there's a confirmation, there's a validation. And then pulling this card, and I remember having this experience that I think it was last summer, yeah, it was last summer, where I'm cycling along, looking at the trackway in the verge hedgerow, and seeing all these medicine plants that I hadn't seen in the last 10 years in that hedgerow, and they appeared because they hadn't been cutting back the hedgerows. They'd been allowing them to grow, and naturally take hold. And there was all this burdock, incredible medicine, this burdock that appeared. And I remember thinking, wow, the medicine plants have come back. And this voice that simply said to me, if the medicine plants are coming back, so too are its people. I really do believe we are in a cycle of return, and we are being woven back into the centre. And we are moving beyond learning. We're moving into a time of remembrance, and great remembrance. The thing is, I think also, we're living in a time where we are being pushed to look over our shoulder and reach for that older wisdom, and to seek it out. We do live in a time where that is also being pushed upon us, but the question is, there's a double-edged sword in that. There is suffering, and there's lots of suffering that's coming from that, but there is also this opportunity to absolutely reclaim that ancient wisdom that has worked for hundreds and thousands of years, and merge it into the now, into the modern day, in a very beautiful and a very powerful way, you know. And even at that level, you know, to be able to reclaim the medicine from the land, and from those indigenous wisdoms that live within our lands, no matter where we are. So her message from the back end of asking Brigid a question, her message from me, and I feel it really powerfully a collective message, and there was another message there that was in there for me as well, which was really, really beautiful. But her message is, how can I step into the light? How can you step into the light? This is all about leadership. The herbalist, she's a healer, she's a medicine person, she's a leader. How can you step into your light? How can I step into my light? How can I be brave? How can I step into this courageously? The thing is, we're moving through that Imbolc threshold, that Imbolc doorway, but we also have the gateway of the full moon. This is a very powerful time for illumination, clarity, and I really do feel it is almost calling us to remember that we are medicine people. You know, that we all have this deep, rich heritage of deep mystical knowledge, wisdom and direct experience that courses through our veins. We descend from those mystery schools, and the land beneath us is releasing her stories, it's releasing her wisdom at a time that we need it the most, and releasing these stories so we may remember that we were all once wisdom keepers, cunning folk, seers, healers and leaders. So, what have you been dreaming? Who have you been dreaming with? How can you step into your light? How can you be brave? And how can you step into this courageously? As always, such a heartfelt pleasure, and we'll weave another layer into this next week. But until then, sending you all so much love. Keep shining.